Okay, so today we're going to talk about intermittent fasting. Lots of benefits. Talk about it in. Do you need a pen? Talk about it in different aspects of what it is and why you might want to do it. Definitely a personal choice. Definitely things have changed over the years in nutrition, and I never would have thought of this as something beneficial in some of the ways that we used to talk about things that, your metabolism's going to drop if you don't keep, giving your food every few hours or whatever. So thoughts have changed. And so first of all, what is intermittent fasting? Basically, it is taking some time where you're fasting or not eating, okay? And there's different patterns that you can do it. One, I guess the term is probably time-restricted feeding, which sounds weird, like we're animals feeding. But what this pattern would be is that you have a certain number of hours that you're going to eat just within that time frame. And then the rest of your day, you're not eating. And so there are different patterns with this. A lot of times you hear about 8 hours of eating and 16 hours of not eating. And it's kind of funny because that is rather arbitrary, and it turns out that the studies were mostly done on 8-hour feeding windows in mice because the grad student whose job it was to take care of the mice, his girlfriend said, you can have 8 hours, but you need to, you can't be in the lab all day. So 8 hours max. So that's why that is the most studied, okay? But there's also been other patterns. Some people will do like a 4 to 6 hour window that they're eating, and then the rest of the day they're not eating. And one thing that they found is that that is probably not the best if you care about weight loss. If your concern is weight loss, that one's a pretty hard one to stick to. And so a lot of people will overcompensate and have that feeling, I've only got 4 hours to eat, so I'm gonna eat a lot. And if you were doing this for weight loss, the goal is to eat less in your time frame than you would have if you weren't fasting. So maybe not the best. 7 to 9 hours seems to be the best for weight loss and adhering to it and being able to fit that into your life. You might have also heard of OMAD, 1 meal a day. So some people are doing this, and the one meal might be considered more of like a 1 or 2 hour window. I personally can't imagine stuffing that much food in, and because you can't do that and just do a 500 calorie meal. You have to get a decent number of calories. But anyway, that is a possibility. That does seem to help for weight loss, probably because you probably can't eat 3,000 calories within that time frame. So everybody's different. I want everybody throughout this whole class to get that idea that everybody's different, and our goal is to find what works for you. But those are some options with that. One guideline with if you are going to do this time-restricted feeding pattern is that one of the best ways to do it, no matter which hours of the day you pick, is that not eating within 1 hour of getting up, and then not eating within 2 to 3 hours of going to bed. So you can think that through and see how which hours of the day might work for you with those guidelines. And I'll give you this too, so take your notes, but I don't want you to feel like I missed it. Okay. So ideally, you would start and stop this feeding window at the same time each day, but life happens, and that's not necessarily. It's not like you don't get any benefits if one day you start eating at 10 and one day you start eating at 11. Also keep in mind that the sleep is sort of a special time where your body does a lot of repair. And when you're not digesting food during that time, your body can put more energy towards this repair and help you, just better for overall health because you're getting good sleep in. So, with that said, you're like that 2 to 3 hours before bed, not eating in that time frame, kind of starting your fasting window from there and leading into sleep is kind of the best way to go. And another way to, another tactic you can use to try to, so basically from the time you stop eating until you're considered in the fasted state where it's fully gotten through your system and you're into this fasting is actually about 5 hours. So that's why you don't want to go to, some people only sleep 5 hours, so, right. So you're better off trying to get into that fasted window before sleep, okay? And another thing that is helpful is if, in order to get stuff out of your system and get you in the fasted state quicker, is if you can take about a 20-minute walk after you eat. 10 to 20 minutes will help get the glucose out of your system and get you into that fasted state sooner. So, stuff to keep in mind. So, ideally, have your last meal, go for a little walk, and then, all right, so there's other plans too. Some people do alternate day fasting, which means they eat totally normal one day, and then the next day they're going to either not eat all day, or just minimal, maybe 500 calories for the day. So that's another plan. And then another plan would be 5 days on, 2 days off. So eat normal for 5 days of your week, and then 2 full days next to each other, fast. So, personally, the time restricted feeding is what seems doable to me. And I did want to mention too that we talked about the different hours that you might want to fast, but benefits have been seen even if you just keep a 12-hour window, which is not that much when you think about it, right? If you ate at 9 in the morning, as long as you stop eating by 9 at night, that's not too hard, not too much fast, right? So, all right. So that's kind of what it is. And now we're going to go over some of the things as to why you might want to do it, what some of the benefits are. So one of the huge things I think is that if you are insulin resistant, or if you just want to make sure you don't become that way, so you know what this means, kind of on your way to diabetes, is your body doesn't react to the insulin that you put out in response to eating sugar or carbs. And it can reverse that, okay? It's one of the, there's not too many, once you're on that path, it's a little bit hard to turn around, but intermittent fasting is one of the ways that you can do that. So I think that's pretty huge. One thing I noticed is better focus, and I noticed this, but it's definitely science-backed as well. So, you can kind of think of it as if your body is not putting energy into digesting something that you've eaten, obviously it leaves more energy for other things, but it is amazing. If you, once you get past the, there's probably going to be some hunger involved, right? But if you kind of can put that out of your mind, you will just be amazed at how you just, you just have this focus. I know it's something that I definitely need more of in my life, so I will feel that in the fasted state. And, you've probably felt the opposite too, where you eat something and then you just want to go to sleep, right? But no, it's just this heightened sense of, my brain has all the power and not other parts of my body, trying to do other things. It can improve your sleep, which a lot of people need some of that, right? But fasting can help you set your circadian rhythm better, which is a big player in sleep. So it's kind of like if your body knows sort of what to expect as far as when are the feeding times and when are not, and then it just kind of lines it up with your sleep as well. It is good for for your heart. It does tend to reduce blood pressure and cholesterol levels. So on the weight loss front, we touched on that a little bit, but generally speaking, if you're doing it right, if you're intermittent fasting, you're probably going to be eating fewer meals, or just less time to eat, so less time to munch. I definitely try to stick to the 12 hours, and this is just more recently that I've been paying attention to it, and some days certainly it's less than 12 hours of what I eat, but just having it in my mind to say, I ate breakfast at 9, then, at 9 o'clock at night, I'm just not going to eat anything past that because it's in my mind that, so it can cut out some snacking that you might have done otherwise, So generally, if you're doing this right, you should be taking in fewer calories because you're just, if you're not overcompensating. And then some, other things that help in the weight loss front would be, because we said it helps your insulin, helps the way that your body reacts to insulin. It makes you more sensitive to it, and it's doing it the right way. So if you have a lot of insulin in your body in response to, snacking or any carbs that you're eating, your body, this is a simplification, but you could kind of say it's not in fat burning mode when there's insulin in your system, okay? And then once the insulin drops down to its baseline level, you can go back to burning fat, okay? But if you are intermittent fasting, you're going to keep your sugar levels in better check and your insulin levels in better check, and you're not always going to be up and down with this insulin, and so you're kind of in fat burning mode more of the day, which is a win, right? And then also human growth hormone, HGH levels tend to rise, which is again helpful for fat burning. And another way you can think of it too, a lot of people, when they think about, I have to diet or I have to lose weight, they're thinking about, I got to cut this out and I got to cut that out. And with this method, generally, it's easier to say, not so much, I've got to not eat this or not eat that. It's like within this window, generally, because if you do this, you should be cutting overall calories. It's not so much, I gotta not eat this, I just have to restrict the time that I eat this. So kind of eat whatever you want, but in a shorter window, and you should get weight loss benefits, in theory, as long as you're not overcompensating. Okay, so another thing is that fasting is actually an acute stressor on your body. So it's not like long-term chronic stress, but it is a little bit of a stressor when your body goes into that mode. And stress is actually not necessarily a bad thing, at least not acute stress that you're going to get through and it's not weighing on you all the time. And that actually makes your body more resilient, and it makes you more resilient to other types of stress. It's kind of like the same concept of going to the gym and strength training, like when you're kind of building a muscle or taxing a muscle, then it comes back stronger. And same thing with stress. If you purposely give yourself little stresses, it comes back stronger. Another huge, to me, I think, benefit of this is helping digestive issues. So if you have any kind of, like Crohn's or IBS are kind of on the far end, but even if you just notice a lot of bloating and things like that after you eat, I mean, that needs to be investigated. There could be other causes, but fasting will give your digestive system a break, which it might not get if you are used to, maybe breakfast at 7 and the last thing you eat is 11 o'clock. That doesn't give you much time for your digestive system to just be not doing anything and being able to repair itself. So that's a big one. So there's also been, so this one is about oxidative stress and inflammation. So I don't know if you've heard of this, but there's a lot of longevity studies out there, trying to get us to be able to live to 150 or whatever, and looking at all the factors that play into it. So one thing that they've known for quite a long time is that if you kind of starve mice, I don't want to say starve, but if you give them, very low calorie restriction, they live like 2-3 times longer than they would have. Okay, so calorie restriction is a really good way to live longer if you want, but there's the flip side of that, like how long do you really want to live if you can only eat 500 calories a day, right? But anyway, the process that happens with this is that your metabolism, like when you're breaking down your foods, it creates these free radicals, which you may have heard of in all kinds of things, like even they use it in skincare commercials too, like that's what's causing your skin to age and things like that. But basically it's like an oxygen molecule that's out there free, and what happens is this free oxygen binds with things that it shouldn't, like proteins and DNA that are, that basically when it binds with it, it can damage. So this causes aging on your cells, all types of cells, so cells that might end up giving you cancer and things like that, as well as, the wrinkles and things that are a little more superficial, but we still tend to care about. So with intermittent fasting, that's something that is reduced, and same thing with inflammation, is that it can bring down inflammation, and that word gets thrown around a lot, but basically any long-term chronic disease like Alzheimer's, different types of cancers, heart disease, all of that is related to inflammation. So anything you can do to reduce inflammation, good. And then also inflammation of your joints and things that just cause daily pain. Okay, so definitely something you want to get rid of. So we've been talking about intermittent fasting, but some people go into longer fasts, or if you are in the method of doing the 2 days of not fasting a week, or even the 1 on, 1 off. So these longer phases of 18 to 24 hours usually is where this process starts, and it's called autophagy. And basically what that means is that your body is looking for things to eat because, or ways to fuel itself. Your cells are looking for ways to fuel itself because you're not giving it any inputs. And so what it does is scavenges, and it looks for things in your body that you don't need. And basically it is looking for damaged cells, because that would be like waste products, right? And it uses that for fuel. So it's like you've got this like garbage man going through and getting things out of your body that you don't need. And that to me is like huge. I think that's a really good feature, but I'm not sure I'm ready to go for 18 hours. But I think that, if that makes sense to you, it would be a reason to at least every so often do fast like that, to just kind of clean out. Another thing is brain benefits. So there's something called brain-derived neurotropic factor, BDNF, and it is it is something that can lead to problems if you're deficient in this. And one of them is depression. Lots of other brain problems too that can be helped with higher levels of this. But again, hey, why not, right? If it's going to help with that, could be a good thing. So that's kind of my explanation of what it is and why you might want to do it. And then the actual implementing is the thing. I think there's, it's something we're not necessarily used to. We live in a culture where there's food everywhere all the time, and lots of people and signs and advertising and whatever trying to get you to eat the food. Okay, so there's kind of that mindset shift that needs to be made to think, oh, no, I'm not going to go along with what is normal and just do this, right? There will be some hunger when you start, but what you will find is that you learn to ignore it. If you can ignore it for a little time, it definitely goes away. You'll find also that once you start doing it, like say you start where you implement, I'm not going to start eating till like 11 o'clock. Well, the first few days or maybe even week, you're going to be hungry in that morning time frame. And then after a while, you're going to notice you're just not even hungry until that time frame. And you will also notice that if on a day after you're used to this, then you eat something at 8 o'clock in the morning, you're going to be starving within a couple hours. It's like once you start the cycle of eating, then it kind of makes you want to eat again. But once you get into this phase of not eating for a while, then you just kind of get like on a roll where you don't need something to eat that early. Okay? And same thing for at night. Like you might, if you cut yourself off at a certain time, you might, for the first few days or weeks be like, oh, I'm kind of hungry at night. But then you'll also probably find that a lot of eating at night is just sort of habit, and you didn't really need it anyway. And so, and another big factor when you're trying to get through that hunger phase is drinking water during that time frame, but also drinking salt water. So your neurons basically, they need sodium to function. They run on electrolytes. So even though you're not giving your body food, if you're giving it the electrolytes, then you're not going to feel that same symptom of hunger, and you're going to, you're not going to feel run down. You're going to, like the things that need that input and the sodium, it's going to be there, and so it's going to run on that versus the food. So that's my pitch.